There be mild spoiler sharks in this here movie analysis ocean.
Terrifier 3 intrigued me initially because of its origin. I'd seen the images before of Art the Clown on streaming services and thought it looked like a generic horror film, admittedly with a pretty visually striking slasher. But with the release of Terrifier 3, I did a little research, finding out how the first Terrifier film was made for roughly $35,000, yet it made $400,000 at the box office after being released in 700 theaters. This spawned a sequel, which was made for, as my understanding goes, $250,000, released in less than 1,000 theaters, but then went on to make $15 million. Now Terrifier 3, made for $2 million, at the time of this writing has made over $50 million.
That is a tremendous amount of money.
This piqued my curiosity. Why is this film resonating, and why so exponentially? Over on ye olde internet, I saw a fair mix of praise and criticism. Some said the movies were intense, funny, with a brilliantly captivating antagonist and kill sequences that would stick in their memories for decades. Others said the films were boring, misogynistic, and nothing but a series of brutal death scenes with zero plot or character.
Well, which is it?
Fair enough. But I haven't been tempted by the cinema in a hot minute, and if you're telling me there's an unrated, independent movie at the top of the box office, then damn, son, I'm going. But first I should probably watch the first two. Terrifier 1 involves Art the Clown stalking and murdering various people on Halloween night. Pretty basic stuff, but it's helped by the cinematography, the lighting, and some very effective surprises, including one death scene that was so gruesome, not so much in what you actually see, though you do see a fair bit, but in its concept, that I felt genuine dread and discomfort in the moments leading up to it.
I mean, this guy was a real jerk.
But when you've seen as many movies as I have, getting any response, even a negative one, is still desirable. I read Tender as the Flesh, and all it did was make me hungry. There were a few things about Terrifier 1 that I did not enjoy, especially with characters making cliche decisions to drop weapons, not go for the kill, a problem that thankfully is much better in the sequels. But that was my only real issue. I personally love that the supernatural elements are virtually non-existent in this one, and there wasn't an obvious protagonist. It made it feel real. It made it feel more, random. I've seen hundreds of slasher films where who dies and who lives is extremely predictable, which is an issue I have with the final girl trope in general. Cue Deep Blue Sea. The first thing I noticed about Terrifier 2 was the terrific box art. The second was the runtime. Nearly 2.5 hours. Now, in Marvel or Scorsese terms, that's an appetizer.
Where's your fucking balls?
But in the world of horror, that's a Vegas buffet. And if you've ever been to a Vegas buffet, then you know that while they're pretty damn fun, by the end, the bloat wears you down. That aside, I loved many of the new characters, and especially the visual variety brought by the bigger budget. I liked how in this one, the victims had more personality, to the point that I was actively dreading the moment some of them were inevitably killed. Extra points go to the mom, who was a huge bitch, but the type of huge bitch where you understand where her bitchy bitchness comes from, and so it's justified. Maybe it's something to do with being in your 30s, but I find it much more relatable, especially her exhaustion. The acting across the board was top-notch, and again, much like the first film, there is a death scene in this one that not even 3 can compete with. It is so gruesome. It is so fucking over the top that I literally felt sick to my stomach. And then 2 seconds later, I was laughing.
I am a bad man.
So, first 2 movies are watched and enjoyed. I got my popcorn, I'm filled up on my soda, and by the time I was walking into the theater for Terrifier 3, I was already in love with the franchise. And thankfully, it was no Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, in that I also loved the third. Sure, I did have some issues, and they lingered on from the second one, but overall, it delivered what I came for, and then some. So, again, what is the secret sauce? I've seen horror films before with likable characters. I've witnessed buckets of blood, horrific deaths, and though not as often as I'd like, especially in the 2000s, memory engraving practical effects. So if I've seen that before, what's the difference maker? Was it just having them all at the same time, or is there some other aspect that made these movies so special to me? And I think I figured it out. I have never seen a horror film where the villain had so much fun. You might be able to make an argument for Gremlins 2, but very different tone, very different levels of gore. Most slasher villains are stoic, motivated by bloodlust or vengeance, or if they do smile, they're doing it with this kind of sadistic coolness. Art is having the fucking time of his life. The closest I can think in the R-rated category would be Freddy Krueger, but specifically in the third, fourth, and fifth film. But again, we're barely spending any time with him except for when he's turning girls into TV stars.
Welcome to prime time, bitch!
Whereas with Art, we get to see him do his laundry. We get to see him go to the bathroom. We get to see him ride a bike. Art is having fun during the killing, during the chasing, and even when he's just eavesdropping or doing laundry. And even if you're not into, the killing, even if you're not a sadist, even if you're like me and some of the kills make you quite uncomfortable because they've made you love the character or because it's just so graphic, you can't help but get captivated by how much fun Art is having. It's like you're talking to a guy and the guy is passionate about cereal and you couldn't give a shit about cereal. You're a French toast man. But witnessing the pure bliss he experiences, you can't help but care about cereal. That's a terrible metaphor. Ultimately, the most accurate description of the Terrifier films I can give is that they are solid 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 movies. But with so many 10 out of 10 moments that I can't help but love them. I watched all 3 in 3 days, and on the 4th day, I was pissed off that there wasn't more Art the Clown in my life, which is just about the best compliment I can give a character. Some stories are meant to entertain, some to teach lessons, a few too many these days, if you ask me. But all art is most effective when it elicits emotional reactions in those experiencing it. The Terrifier franchise isn't perfect. I have several gripes with it, and they're subjective, but I don't love movies for their technical perfection. I love them when they make me feel something. Fuck, I love basketball, and that movie makes me feel one emotion, laughter, and that's it. When you can combine disgust, empathy, shock, dread, anticipation, and a whole lot of laughter, that's the type of feast I can only hope for more of. Which is good, because this movie made a fuck ton of money.